quick little journey through my career making glass. I've been doing it about 35 years, so starting when I was 5. And this takes us way back to kind of the beginnings. This was just last year, and I really got enamored by. I tried all different art forms in school. My mom taught art, as I said, as a kid, and so there was always art going on. She taught after school classes, and so there was literally art going on all over the house, and so it was just a natural progression. I went to a high school for performing arts, and was singing and dancing and stuff like that, and then I really got caught up in the plastic arts during college, and I quickly discovered the glass, and my journey began. And these are cast feet. This is just a very early piece, and trying to literally sort of find my way with the glass. And I had been in the ceramics department, San Francisco State University, and glass blowing was happening right down the hall. And this piece was made from a mold which we were slip casting clay into. And so I literally took the mold down the hall and had these glass blowers blow into it, and I was hooked immediately. I threw the clay out and went, just every day was about getting into the shop. And this was actually one of the first pieces, artistic pieces. I mean, it takes a long time to learn how to blow glass and work with glass, but in the very beginning I found myself trying to find ways to do non-utilitarian glass, non-functional glass, because glass and ceramics has a very deep history in utilitarian objects, right? Things that we use, that we make to drink from or put flowers in or eat from or whatever. So I had a couple of jobs which helped me advance my skills in working with glass on a larger scale, and I got to go up to a place called the Pilchuck Glass School, which is a school created by Dale Chihuly. I don't know, probably many of you are familiar with the name, but he created, with some other folks, a beautiful summer camp up north of Seattle that became sort of the mecca for glass. And this is me in, I think, 1989, and my first or second trip up to Pilchuck. And it was a place where you were working with people who were way beyond your stage in the game, and so you immediately saw a much broader way to approach the material, right? Because there were pros or masters from Europe that Dale was bringing and all these kinds of things. So you quickly basically thought that you were much better than you actually were. and so you would then try to push yourself. And consequently, and Justin can attest, I mean, it's been a place where we've gotten very much of our information but also our connections to the industry by meeting these people and going out and traveling. Justin was just telling me he's going to like 5 countries in the next few months, and so we have these connections with people all around the world. And glass is a language that you can speak, whether or not you speak the same language verbally, you can speak the language in glass. And so it really offers the ability to expand, your aspirations working with glass. But I wouldn't call myself a conceptual artist, but there were times that I tried to create conceptual pieces because I wanted to, delve a little bit more into my emotional sense for creating things and not it just be a physical sport, if you will. Because I mean, in a sense, that's how I kind of approached it in the early days when I was big and strong. I was able to really attack the material in a way and work with people who were so phenomenally adept at it that it became like a happening. It was like a dance or a sport when we got in there and we made the glass. And then you sort of had these objects that were a byproduct of that. And sometimes you would use them beyond their functionality. In this case, this was a piece that I made which had neon, and it built a big nest, and then we created an egg, and it had a slit in it. People put wishes, they wrote in paper, and put it in the top of the egg. This is at the Pilchuck Glass School, and then at one point I broke the egg and the ideas escaped. So whatever, we just trying to create things that were interactive with people. And so here's a picture. This was actually on top of the hot shot at Pilchuck with a ladder that led up to it. So I say no more. I injured my leg recently on a ladder. So we've come full circle. So anyway, San Francisco State University, 1989. Again, I started working for a neon artist. I was also working for John Lewis, is an incredibly large-scale caster, and so championing the skill. But again, I was still really caught up in the sport of glass blowing. How big could you make things? How much movement could you kind of give them? Quick little funny anecdote, my grandfather was in his deathbed in the hospital, and I think I was year 2 into glass, and he was an inventor that I got a lot of my ideas from. He helped me get into creating things. But I showed him a picture of these things. Literally, he's laying in the hospital, and he looked at him real close, 96 years old, and he just looked over and he goes, "Keep it up, you'll get them straight someday." And so it's really funny because I was, although in the beginning you're trying to learn how to control it and make them symmetrical, and we would learn how to make Venetian glass and repeat these 1,000-year-old objects, and it was a really neat connection to be able to repeat something that had been made 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago in the Renaissance by a master glassmaker in Milano or something like that. So learning those techniques in the beginning was an extremely important part of becoming able to work with glass, right? But I was also at the same time very interested in doing things that hadn't been done, and I think that's really been the driving force behind my work. And even though, of course, they say it's all been done, and sure, these are all iterations of things you've seen, I always thought of it as inventing. And I always thought my next piece is something that'll be new to me. It might be new to the world, but nonetheless, it's an adventure. And so I would create these bodies of work, just experimenting. Like, for instance, we did a big project for a fountain, which you'll see later in the show. But we have a lot, and glass, by the way, when you're making it, there's tremendous amount of failure. There's like 50% of failure. So you're getting about half the stuff that you make. It becomes very precious. And then we were using the broken pieces to then make a whole new series of work. So in this way, you're recycling it, and you're recycling your ideas in a way, but expanding them. And so it just was really just about getting in there every day and seeing if I could come up with something new that excited me, and that was exciting to make, but also in the case of having an exhibition, and this is at one of the studios that I had, how people would react to the stuff. What kind of reaction you would get. That's what's been, hi Josh. Hi. That's what's been so neat about having you guys come here and see the work. Because in the studio, we make it, we think it's cool. But when they bring it here to these beautiful gallery, put these wonderful lights on it, and can talk about it in such a way and see the people's reaction, that really justifies a whole nother level of why we like to make it, because ultimately we end up with a bunch of bric-a-brac around the studio. You don't know what to do. And then if you're fortunate enough to take it to a professional level and can show it, and then people want to acquire it, well, it's certainly a verification or a way of continuing on in it, And so then this is really work. These sort of towers, we're talking like 1990 here, something like that. This is at the Tampa Museum of Art, where I did a kind of a installation of these towers. And you'll see me continually revisiting this Pilchuck Glass School I mentioned, and meeting new people in the industry and being influenced. I can't explain how important the influence of mentors and learning from masters is in learning about this material, I guess any material for that matter. And there's so many different ways that people work with it. I mean, you see that in this gallery. It's unbelievable let's just call it melted sand, but all these people create all this different stuff with melted sand. It's totally phenomenal, and I'm constantly amazed by what people can come up with the stuff, and also how, by the way, it reflects their personality. It's infused in the work, Also, on that note, being in Miami, I've been there 25 plus years. Wherever you live tends to influence whatever you're making, I think. And so the neon, obviously, the 80s and the Miami, and that, the flashiness of some of the work, it certainly is reflected in the work, and the fun and playful quality. The pastels, that's a very Art Deco Miami. And so this work was coming out of those early years in Miami. And then just trying to do things, again, that push the limits of the glass. Glass, by the way, when we make it in the hot shop, in the glass shop, it's in a furnace, and you bring it out of the furnace in some way with a rod or a scoop or something, and it's hot glass we're talking about. And then you have to make it in a certain amount of time and then place it into an oven, and it's cooled down, it's tempered over a period of time based on the thickness. In this case, these pieces were made, and they're maybe 10 feet tall. We don't have a 10-foot oven, so these were actually air annealed, is what we say. So they were blown in a matter of minutes, and then just laid down on the floor, and I prayed that they would live. And so then I was able to create a piece. I wouldn't advise them being in anyone's home, but it was a way of also pushing the limits and pushing your own limits with the material. And so I literally spent the last, I don't know, the first 20 years, but certainly the last 35 years, just experimenting and learning how to control the glass and learning how to let the glass control me, and some fun place in between where it was out of control, and then learning also how to make things which were very articulated through working with artists who knew all the tricks, Italian masters and other masters from different parts of the world. And then I started to develop a kind of a style, that I think was evocative of my own personality as a singer and a dancer, and movement and color and all the formal qualities of glass. But within all this work, and I saw myself as someone who was very eclectic and just wanted to make something different every time we went in the shop. But after 30 plus years, I actually realized that it's all tied together. And even though it looks like it's maybe made by a lot of different artists, and you'll see this as we go along, looking back now in hindsight with the experience that I have, I realized that it's all part of one big movement in my life of experiencing and working with glass. And so some projects would become obsessive compulsive. This is a chapel made from glass. You have a vision for an idea, and whether it's in your garden or wherever it is, and you're going to see it through, and you put whatever means together that you have to make that happen. This was the second part of this project that I did, which was this piece is called Limosaic, and I mosaicked the limousine. My team was not too fond of this idea initially, but once we got going, it became a lot of fun, and we ended up driving it across the country and did several shows, one of which was the Glass Art Society Conference happens somewhere every year in the world, and this was showcased in New Orleans, I forget what year that was. These, by the way, you'll see some of them in the gallery, these are just sort of action paintings, which I've been doing for about 30 years with glass on wood. So I'm just using the glass to burn the wood. So like a Jackson Pollock-esque approach to the material, where we're putting a piece of wood on the floor, pouring hot glass onto it, it's scarifying, it's burning we remove the glass, and then later I'm pouring resin over, and you'll see. Those are exciting because it takes you out of that technical making of the glass, and you're able to free it up. And so kinetic pieces, this thing kind of spins around, and it's really, more than anything, honestly, has been a way to play with people and with the material, which makes life fun. And then those fun pieces, which we would make at school in the summer, would then translate into large architectural projects. So we would discover some small thing at the school, but then I would come back to my studio with the team, and we would embark on an actual job that would hopefully fund our fun, essentially. And this is 15-foot diameter, the entranceway of the Hyatt in Trinidad. So stuff like that, you start to get into these bigger projects where, you had to sort of get serious about your fun, right? You had to do it in a way that was sanctioned legally, so to speak, which is dicey ground when you're going from art to business, And I'm now with computers and the way that it's changing, and I think the knowledge that the new teachers have, they're bringing part of that into the curriculum, because you can make fabulous things, but unless you can get them to the marketplace, they just remain ideas and objects. So these are the two fellows, two of the bigger influences in my life. Petr Novotny on the left, Rene Rubicek on the right. By the way, Rene is the Chihuly of Czech glass. He was making Chihuly chandeliers in the 50s. Chihuly saw his work, ... So, but this is a project, and Peter is the greatest glass blower to come out of the Czech Republic, who became king of an empire, many factories. He was my mentor. They have an invitational only event called the International Glass Symposium every 3 years in the Czech Republic, and artists from around the world are invited to come and use teams in the Czech factories to produce work within 3 days, and they have a massive exhibition. This piece was produced within 3 days by them. This is a piece that I made, which is permanently there. And you can see that it lights up again at night. But this piece is based on a geologic form, right? A basalt fissure, which is a volcanic form that comes up out of the earth, and they have a feature like that in the town, so that's why I created this piece. And then you elaborate on it. You try to take those, I believe these were created at here in Texas at the university, but these are stools which you sit on, and you can change the color of the water inside of them. But so creating furniture, creating architectural pieces that are influenced by nature. This also was kinetic. It kind of went up and down. And glass is a difficult material to work with in that it is quite fragile, but yet so strong. And so you're challenged to work with it in different ways than it just being a static object. But in this case, another iteration of this, and then doing, I guess it's a little skew, but doing architectural projects again are a way that we've been able to expand I think the scale and the inspiration for working with pieces. I got an opportunity to design what we call the centerpieces for the Pilchuck Glass School. They do an auction every year. It's a multi-million-dollar event, and artists donate glass from all around the world, and then they have a special feature where an artist is picked through a competition to design a piece, which is they make about 150 of them, and then they're sold at the gala event. There's centerpieces all around and given to their primary benefactors. And by the way, I bring this into the fold because we actually realized these pieces at the University of Texas when I was teaching there. Justin was around for this, and so it was a process of inventing. These were some of the first ones. This process of stacking these leaves together without a substrate form in between them. So much like someone would build a clay pot, we were starting from the first leaves at the bottom and then kind of building these pieces, which we had never done before. And so it turned into a really interesting series that I was able to, and have continued to elaborate on over the years. And then other offshoots of those. I have a funny little anecdote about leaves. I don't think I should get into it. My mom made me rake leaves in the yard as a kid. I couldn't stand it. And so getting back at her, I just created a whole, a lifetime of leaves in my work. And then I think even this piece actually was also created. The first one was created at the University of Texas. And this shows you that molding technique that I speak of, whereby I made a mold which was essentially a spike, and we blew glass into it, which became the arm for this series of stars, the wind stars which you see around the gallery. And so this, I'd say it's been about 12 years or so that I've been pushing this body of work. And so you've got 12 arms adhered to a central form, which is a 12-sided dodecahedron, right? This form in the middle. And you can see one back here in the corner over here, and certainly you can see them in the gallery. But it's been neat because by recreating this same form over and over, I can create different ones. And so that was one of the few things. I would say the leaf vessels and these wind stars were a way for me to still stay interested in a repetitive process. And so for me, every piece, became a way of sort of reinventing myself. You know, this piece, by the way, some of them do have backstories. This is called Memory Loss, a struggle that I went through with my other grandparent and about with Alzheimer's. You know, so there is emotion infused into the work, and again, a lot of these things kind of continue throughout my career. The furniture, these pieces were totemic pieces which we were building, and things like this that again, I think a lot of it harps back to nature. My experiences in nature, I've always been kind of a nature goer, seeker, viewer, you know, and I'll find myself in the woods or in the ocean or wherever I am looking at some little detail and immediately start thinking, how am I going to translate that into glass? And the same is true in society, and being around people and being in modern society. During COVID, we were all kind of freaking out, lockdown, and my wife had this massive shoe collection. It's sort of her art, and I just found myself staring at her shoe collection one day, and I'm like, hey, I think I can make one of those. And then I decided to embark on this body of fashion work. This was a suit that I made, which is actually an homage to one of our great masters, Pino Signoretto, but nonetheless, it was that idea. It's certainly high fashion, Miami, you know, I decided that I would make a whole body of these stilettos, they were called, and so just by picking that format of a shoe, I could expound on it, right, and use that image as an expressive, you know, springboard for exploring the glass and what and I might add, my wife, and she's not here yet, but had a hand in this, which was exciting because we were stuck in the house together, and she helped me build some of these things, and then it expanded into other fashion icons. I figured if I'm going to do it for the ladies, I might as well do it for the dudes too, and so I made a whole line of ties. So this sort of brings us up to a little bit more of the latest stuff, where things are starting to infuse a lot of the different influences into these series. You can see the scale of them is growing, and the applications of them are growing. I'm doing installations of them. This is at the Imagine Museum down at, I suggest highly if you're ever in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is full of amazing museums, but the Imagine Museum is a super comprehensive museum for glass. And again, doing architectural projects which, you know, are always a challenge. And so then this is now the latest sort of iterations of these pyrographic paintings. These are larger scale paintings, which, as I said, we first will burn the substrate material, whatever it is, wood, and then I'll now go back in and paint. And I've been doing more of these while I've been off my foot, as you can well imagine. But taking things into the two-dimension, and I mean, I'll say this gallery's been highly instrumental in that, because they have both sides, right? They've got the fabulous two-dimensional world, and then together you have it right here with 3 dimensions, and Bob and his crew put together amazing collections of work for folks in their homes, and it's neat to see that happen real time. I mean, it's really enticing as an artist to think that, you know, you can broaden your horizons through the art, you know. And then this is the final slide, and so nowadays what I'm really starting to head for is architectural glass. I think there's a whole new frontier for me. I think my studio art will continue, but I'm much more interested in a way to maybe take it to a larger level, where a broader audience can experience the work. And so, again, by creating molds, these are cast tiles in a wall. I'm able to work with architects and incorporate these into architectural features and into the skin of buildings or whatever the case may be, and still utilize those assets that glass has that still keeps me enamored today. So thank you guys for coming out today.